Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of CoinNewsExtra interview session, a program where we invite innovators and enthusiasts, influencers in the ecosystem to talk about the state of the ecosystem. So today I have with me Akinyinka Akintunde. He is the VP Financial Market for AFEX Commodity Exchange. Thank you, Akinyinka, for joining us today.
Thank you, Lee. Good to be here.
Guys, a pleasure to have you, and seeing what you are doing in the ecosystem is so much encouraging. But before we go straight to the interview, we'd like to have a brief about yourself, just briefly.
Okay, thank you for that. AFEX Commodities Exchange is an organization that is pioneering innovative financing solution for players in the agricultural ecosystem. We're a Securities and Exchange Commission regulated entity, and our role has always been to increase the productivity of smallholder farmers on one hand, whilst creating an alternative asset class for players in the capital market to finance activities and operations in the agricultural value chain. The long-term objectives for us as a firm is structuring ways to attract innovative financing to drive operations in the agricultural space. As you may be aware, agriculture is very, very critical to the development of the national economy. Agriculture currently drives about 24% of your GDP, but yet financing to this sector is highly limited. So one of the things we do is, how do we attract more innovative financing to drive productivity in the agricultural space?
Interesting, nice. That's very, very nice. We'll be looking at. Can you just explain briefly how the commodity market and the exchange, how it will function, just briefly?
So we'll do a bit of back in history conversation here, right? If you look at the developed economies, right, and they talk about commodities exchanges, what works for them is a derivatives market. Commodities exchanges are synonymous to a derivative market in developed countries. But if you look at the Nigerian local operating landscape, which is almost the case for all commodities exchanges in Africa, or more agricultural commodities markets in Africa, the infrastructure for you to have a derivatives market is not yet in place, because your spot market, which is the actual physical market where you buy and sell commodities, is not yet operational in a formal framework. So in Nigeria, about 70% of the adult population are into agriculture, yet our productivity is very low. Some of the problems we have in this ecosystem stems from access to no inputs in a timely manner, to our inability to have irrigation farming, to no financing coming into this sector, primarily due to the fact that most of the smallholder farmers in the country are not financially included. So these gaps and a whole lot of it are part of the things that inspired us to play a critical role in this infrastructure. We started operations in 2014, and the role we play in the market is basically how do we ensure that smallholder where they are get access to a ready market. And this is done in a bid for us to build the ecosystem directly from the smallholder farmers to the ready markets where they could sell their commodities at any point in time. And the benefits of having access to ready markets is the fact that you get access to the market prices directly. So you eliminate the role of middlemen that are not adding value to your transactions, and then you get to increase your incremental income. Now, the benefits of this for us as an organization is the fact that we get to impact smallholder farmers by increasing their standard of living through the access to ready markets on one hand, and on the other hand, we get to increase their productivity by creating an avenue for them to get access to inputs in a timely manner. The inputs they get is what they plant, and then they harvest commodities on top of that. We create an end-to-end solution for the smallholder farmers, with the solution starting from being able to profile them on the system and financially including them in the ecosystem. Through our network, we have the infrastructure to be able to register farmers on the BVN platform, where they can get their BVN numbers and From there, they get to open bank accounts, meaning we get to financially include them in the financial systems of the country. Now, when a farmer is financially included, then they are now eligible for to access financial products either from the banking sector or from a structured market. One of the solutions we bring on board is the ability for us to be able to unlock financing for smallholder farmers, meaning smallholder that have loans to be able to go through their planting activities. But by creating a platform for them to be included in the financial sector, they now get an opportunity to be able to access loans to be able to go through with their production activities for the season. So for us at AFEX is an holistic approach we take, ensuring that from financially including the farmers to providing the inputs in a timely manner to ensuring there's a market for them to sell the commodities is a solution we believe is critical to increasing the standard of living of the smallholder farmers. And that is on one hand. The other hand that balances this is the fact that the capital market is very big, right? And currently the focus has always been on fixed income and equity products, right? One of the things we're looking at based on our understanding of investors' desire or capital market players' need is the desire to have alternative assets classes they could invest in a structured manner, right? And over the years, if you are familiar with news going on in the ecosystem, you discover that a lot of players have struggled to put in structure in their agricultural space, not because they don't have good intention or that they don't have the structure to push it, but because there's a need to develop the infrastructure that drives these financing activities. So one of the things we do on that end, leveraging on the infrastructure we created to access the smallholder farmers, is to be able to develop structured products where players in capital markets could seamlessly invest in agricultural activities, imbibing trust in the system and ensuring that capital is preserved for these investors. They get an opportunity to diversify their portfolio, and then they're opportune to directly finance activities in this ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Talking about financial inclusion, we're trying to getting the farmers on board and making them to be in the ecosystem and to be financially involved. So we are looking at. I saw on the platform, FS is providing innovative solution for Nigerian agricultural sector, an alternative asset class for investors. Is there, does this mean that when you're talking about alternative asset class, does it mean that there are possibilities that in the future, FS will venture into the crypto and blockchain space?
So for us, it's not so much as venturing into the crypto and blockchain space, but being able to provide the infrastructure that attracts players currently in those ecosystems to directly play in the commodities market. At AFEX, one of the don't believe in is reinventing the wheel, right? And we'd rather put structures in place to regulate the market. Like I mentioned earlier, we are an entity regulated by Securities and Exchange Commission. And as at now, it's only one entity in the ecosystem that do trade currencies, which is FMDQ. Now, if you're looking at cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, is a highly unregulated space because there are lots of it's currently unregulated, even though the Securities and Exchange Commission is putting structures in place to ensure that these entities are regulated. Now, how do you ensure that the system is transparent as much as possible and you get to give investors or players in this ecosystem confidence to be able to seamlessly play? Remember, over the time, a lot of people have been crying wolf in cryptos and blockchain because there's limited understanding of what goes on there. But with the SEC coming on board and possibly regulating entities in this sector, it provides an avenue for us to be able for market players and stakeholders in the ecosystem to leverage on our infrastructure to play in this ecosystem. Our 5-year strategic plan at the moment does not involve cryptocurrencies, but we do have a structure that ensures that players with blockchain solution could seamlessly plug into our infrastructure and increase the value they provide into the whole ecosystem. And if you look at it, cryptocurrencies are commodities on one end, right? So over the next 5 years, by the time, based on the direction the Securities and Exchange goes, this is not speaking on behalf of the SEC, rather, but FX's opinion. And then we could have a structure in place that ensures that players in the cryptocurrencies could have a framework where they could play in a regulated market.
Interesting. That's very so interesting to hear because we know how the ecosystem, you made mention of the regulation. These have been a challenge that have been surrounding the blockchain and crypto space around the world because there have been uncertainty and unclarity when it comes to regulations. But we know that recently the SEC of Nigeria, they came out with some guidelines, but they are still working on that. So we are looking at we know that the situation that we are facing now, most especially during this pandemic, what are some of the challenges investors and the commodity market is facing this pandemic period? We've seen that the coronavirus has really affected different sectors. What are the challenges this sector is facing?
So the sector as a whole is facing lots of challenges. At the peak, at the start of the lockdown imposed in the country, there was difficulty in terms of moving trucks, movements basically, right? And unfortunately for the ecosystem, that was the beginning of the planting season for players in the commodities market, which means that at the period when this lockdown started was when smallholder farmers needed fertilizers and inputs required to go to farm to cultivate their produce the most, right? Unfortunately, the restriction at that point curtailed a lot of activities that could have been done in the ecosystem, barring a lot of smallholder farmers from accessing inputs in a timely manner. And the potential impact of this is if steps are not taken by the relevant government agencies in the near future, we might be experiencing some shortage in terms of food production in the country. However, during this pandemic period, we've seen lots of government agencies swing to action to ensure that what is required of the country is being put in place. Now, all these are on one side of the value chain. On the other side of the value chain, investors, due to the lockdown, are not very optimistic of the outlook. However, we've seen more activities in terms of financing activities in this ecosystem because due to the low yield environment we are currently in the country, investors see investments in agricultural activities as giving them the appropriate risk return for their investments. Due to the innovative structures we've put in place, we've seen increased demand for some of these financing institutions and capital market players in playing in the commodities ecosystem. And we think the tempo would be sustained over the long run because this is a viable infrastructure that is critical to the growth of the economy.
Interesting to know. We know that this period will overcome and it will come to pass soon. Finally, before we draw the curtain on today's episode of Coin is Extra interview session, so what's your closing remark?
I think there is room for technology innovation based on technology in the ecosystem. We've seen lots of activities front loaded by various agencies and private organizations in providing a seamless play in the agricultural space. And this is due to the fact that the sector is a very, very critical one. For us at AFEX, our goal has always been to ensure that smallholder farmers on our platform or in Nigeria have access to a ready market. At the moment, we have just over about 120,000 farmers formally registered on our system, and we have a 5-year objective of getting this number to about a million. Now, for us, it leverages on partnerships and engaging key players in the market. And over the next couple of months, we will be introducing some innovative structure in the market that ensures that players could contribute their quota through a structured investment, through a structured infrastructure, through a structured platform to ensure that financing to the agricultural space is as seamless as possible. And then you get to increase the productivity of smallholder farmers and the value they get by having access to finance. We believe that having a structured play in the agricultural space would increase the food security agenda of the country, and it will increase the revenue we get through diversifying our over concentration on crude oil. And furthermore, innovative solution in the technology space would also drive efficiency in the space. And we are open to working with key stakeholders and various players in the ecosystem to drive increased investment and productivity of players in this ecosystem.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Akinyinka Akintunde, for joining us today on CoinNewsExtra interview.